It's now time for the big story. Tropical storm Melissa is in fact slowly moving northwestward across the central Caribbean Sea and is posing a threat to Jamaica. A tropical storm warning and hurricane watch are in effect, with heavy showers and thunderstorms expected to affect the island late, into the weekend. Gradual strengthening is forecast with rapid intensification expected this weekend. We're joined at this time by the Principal Director of the Meteorological Service of Jamaica, Mr. Evan Thompson, who is on with us at this time. Good morning, Evan. How are you today?
Hi, good morning, Richie B. I'm well. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm fine.
I can well understand. We thank you for all that you continue to do, you and your team. We depend on you, especially at this time, and you've been doing a remarkable job. Now, Evan, what would you say this morning is the current status of Tropical Storm Melissa, and what areas are expected to be most affected?
Well, the tropical storm, it is still a tropical storm. It hasn't strengthened any further to a hurricane, although that is expected to take place sometime in the next 24 or more hours. The system is still in its same general position, which is somewhat to the southeast of Jamaica. And it is expected to move closer and closer to Jamaica. You asked about the current status, and
Yes.
the current status is really stationary because this tropical storm has not been moving at all. It has really, since yesterday, it has just been moving much slower than you and I could walk.
Really?
Yes, at just about 2 miles per hour. And it has even slowed further, where it is now practically stationary in that general position. One thing that's interesting is that usually when these systems slow down so much, they tend to pick up strength.
Mm-hmm.
But this one has not strengthened thus far, so it has remained basically the status quo, just as it was before. It just continues to be in that position, location, strength over the past, say, 24 or 12 hours at least. It has been sitting there. So we are expecting some more movement toward us. But of course, because it has remained stationary, that has basically thrown many of the forecasts out the window in terms of the timelines.
Yes.
Because whereas we would have expected rainfall to have started across Jamaica already, because the system hasn't moved any closer to us, we really, of course, have had to push that back. So we're now looking at later on in this evening that we could be seeing that rainfall, or afternoon, as long as the system actually starts to move closer to us, as was originally projected.
When you look at the track of this tropical storm Melissa over the next few days, where do you see it headed?
It's very interesting. I just looked at the latest track forecast, projected track of this system. And, as was said before, it is expected to move more or less to the north for the time being, moving toward the eastern side of Jamaica. But then during the course of the day tomorrow, we expected that it would turn toward the west. And so it wouldn't move to the center of the system would not be therefore moving across the island, but instead it would move over the waters south of us because it would be turning before getting to us. Mm-hmm. So it's expected to move over the waters south of Jamaica, moving east to west. And then what I noticed very interestingly in the latest projection is that it is then, right after passing Jamaica, expected to pick up that northward movement and then turn a little toward the northeast. So it's almost like it's moving toward Jamaica, it's turning away from Jamaica, keeping to the south, and then going around the island and then continuing to the north of the island. So it just seems to be making a clear motion. At least the forecast is that it would move directly to avoid the island, practically, to move around us and then proceed to the north toward Cuba.
Whatever forces are causing that to happen, I endorse that movement. But how will you mentioned the slow movement of the storm. How might this impact Jamaica and the weather that we'll experience here?
Well, one of the things about about a system like this remaining stationary is that it gets the opportunity to pull in a lot more moisture from the seas because it is over the water. And so a lot of the moisture is being pulled into its bands. And so as it becomes even more organized, we could see a lot more water in the system when it is moving close to us. And even if it moves off the coast of the island, the center of the system, the bands of showers and thunderstorms that are associated with it will continue to move around it, and Jamaica would be in the path, most likely, of these bands. So we are looking for a lot more rainfall produced by this system as it moves closer and closer to Jamaica, or as it maintains its location close to the island. So as long as it's close to us, we're likely to experience quite a bit of rain, and that would, of course, mean that with the kind of saturation that we've already experienced over much of the island, we'll be having lots of flooding, widespread flooding across the country. And then, of course, landslides are also a likelihood after that.
Are you seeing in the forecast maybe 12 inches of rain? What is that looking like?
Actually, yes, that is what we're actually saying. Even more than that, we could have between 8 and 14 inches over mainly eastern parts of the island, but then the amounts are likely to be a bit less as we move to the west, but it is still likely to be of flood potential.
What would you say are some of the parishes that are likely to be most affected by this storm, Evan?
Okay, in terms of most impact, we do expect areas of St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, going right across into Manchester and the St. Elizabeth. And then, well, even Westmoreland as it continues to move. The northern side, where Portland is concerned, also could experience significant rainfall, and going into St. Mary. The rest of the island in the northwest, from Hanover across through St. James, Trelawney, and St. Anne, may likely get a little bit less in terms of the rainfall and even the strong winds, but should not be out of the woods at all, because the rainfall will engulf most of the island.
Okay. As it relates to precautions that residents and so on should be taking at this time, what would you suggest?
Well, if you are vulnerable to the flooding, if you're in a flood-prone area, or one of those low-lying areas, of course you should be paying special alert to rising waters in your area. Make arrangements to move from your area if that is a likelihood that you would be inundated by that amount of water. If you're anywhere you are, especially over southern and eastern parishes, the winds are going to be a challenge at some point. So you also should be preparing for that, and ensuring that, the loose objects outside your home are removed. If there is any need to batten down anywhere, you do need to do that, just to ensure that if we do experience those tropical storm force winds, or even as the system strengthens and hurricane force winds are also a possibility, we do hope that you would make the kind of preparations to ensure that you protect your home.
What do you say to marine interests and small craft operators on a morning like this?
Well, we would expect that all marine operators would already be back on land and not out on the waters. If you are still over the waters of the Caribbean, you do need to move to the land immediately, because this is a life-threatening situation. If this system moves closer to your area, you could probably not escape the wrath of it. So you need to be on land, making preparations for ensuring that your vessels are secured, and then, of course, preparing your homes to deal with any eventuality of a hurricane.
Allow me one more question, Evan. The fact that the storm is slow moving,
Yes.
Speak to me, if you will, about the whole matter of rapid intensification when it picks up or decides to move on. How likely is that, and how impactful might that be?
Okay, well, what I said earlier about the system being stationary, that would be for a while. Afterwards, when it starts to move, we do expect that it will move slowly as it moves closer to Jamaica. But then after that, when it likely becomes a hurricane, or maybe late on Saturday going into Sunday, when it takes that shift to to start moving toward the west, at that point, we do expect that there will be some strengthening of the system, significant strengthening, because it is moving over very warm waters. And so we do expect that some rapid intensification would take place, blossoming not only into the hurricane, but then into maybe a major hurricane. So we're likely to see it moving through the categories from 1, 2, past into 3, category 3 hurricane, and possibly even higher than that as it moves